if all you're saying to yourself is, I can't, I can't, I can't, as opposed to asking, how can I, you're never going to see the small glimmer of hope. In those moments when it comes to burnout, when you're just drained of your energy, you've lost hope. And we need to just slowly turn that dial up to even like a one to say, oh, I have a little bit of hope again.
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership.
Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedlak, and I am super glad that you're here with us today because I am here with my most amazing guest, Caleb. Caleb, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's Caleb, just so you know,
Caleb.
and that's okay. It's all right. Don't worry about
it. I will, because inevitably say it wrong 6 times then.
It's okay. As long as you don't call me idiot, but even then I might not be too upset. Whatever.
As long as I know I'm talking to you, it's all good, right?
That was my PC version of it, but we're here now. It's all good.
Awesome. So tell us who you are and pronounce your name properly. Give us a quick introduction to your business and what you do.
Well, I'm Caleb Nelson. My company's called Naked Sunday, and I help people look better naked inside and out. And what does that mean? Because people are like, what? So I help people regain their confidence while they're transforming their body. And ultimately, this is so that with that newfound confidence, they'll feel good in themselves, but it's so they can be better role models for their family, be better leaders for their organization and whatever role they're serving there, but ultimately so they can live their life in a way that is in aligned with their values and they can experience more happiness. So in a nutshell, they're going to love what they see in the mirror, but more importantly, they're going to love what's on the inside and how they experience and interface with their world.
Awesome. So how did you get into all of this?
Well, I was where most people who might have resonated with all that were. I had a wellness center and I was burnt out. I knew all the stuff. I knew how to lose weight. I have a degree in kinesiology. I've trained thousands of people. We had chiro, we had massage. I had all the tools, but my knees were killing me. I was putting on weight. I was about 40 pounds overweight. I was married and I had friends around me, but I just felt disconnected from them all. And I would not really know how to communicate in any way, shape, or form. Just it was fight or flight all the time, constantly stressed out. I was feeling just bored at work, and I would chase the shiny object, as many business owners do, whether it was buying new equipment or looking for new properties or whatever the thing was. Though I was just really avoiding the things that were at home, whether it was going deeper in my marriage, whether it was shoring up things within the business and developing better processes so that I could explore with confidence and freedom, or more importantly than it all, taking care of myself and making time and space for me to feel better. And what inevitably happened was I started this habit called Naked Sunday, hence the name of the business. And true to form, I sat butt naked every Sunday and dealt with the thoughts that came up. And at its core, the conversation comes down to, why do you love yourself? It's another way of saying, do you have any confidence? Do you trust yourself? And I hadn't explored that. I knew how to shine the shell. I knew how to build the business. I knew how to help people lose weight. I knew how to get the girl. I knew how to build at least surface level relationships, but I didn't know how to go deeper. And when I sat there, I realized, whoa, I not only do I not know why, I don't think I do. And I give my wife the saving grace here. All of a sudden, I looked over, and amidst my shame, looking at my body and feeling just gross and a shadow of my former self when I was an athlete and all those other things, I just looked at her and I was like, well, she's still with me. She's been through all the stuff with me, through the ups and downs in business, through the fallouts, through all that when I was in better shape and everything else. Well, why does she love me? And as I started to ground myself in that, I started to take more objective but compassionate looks at my behaviors. So the classic example I use is always, well, on Tuesday, I was stressed out of my mind, so I came home and I crushed a sleeve of Oreos. Well, maybe that's not in line with your goals, Caleb. what could you do next time? And it became this, as I say, this accountable but compassionate and loving conversation with myself, grounded in who I am, what I want to become truly, not based off anybody else's expectations at all, but based on what I want to be as a man, as I want to become a father, as a leader in my own organization. I started to take a real close look at what those things are and then started to align my life in those things. Practically speaking, on the external, that helped me lose 40 pounds, get in the best shape of my life without doing any crash diets or feeling like I was deprived. It enriched and deepened my marriage. I had more free time and space to do the things I loved. I traveled more where I hadn't traveled barely at all in the previous 7 to 10 years. And I have more inspiration and rediscovered my passion in my work and how I help and coach people. It made it really easy. It made it really effortless to just show up and do the things I love and value myself appropriately on the other end of that, whether it's charging more and working in less time or name it, just being inspired to show up and do the things I love. As I said before, I just look better naked inside and out.
Nice. I love that. So when you started, tell me a bit about that exploration because I've found in the past that when people start there, they're just kind of overwhelmed with negativity and, the shame, the embarrassment, and it just becomes kind of like a wall that they can't see past.
Mm.
And you had mentioned that looked at your wife to get that grounding, to get past that wall. Um, but kind of how long did that last and what was going on for you while you were still in that kind of muck stage, we'll call it?
Great question. Um, well, I was wallowing in my own self-pity for the first probably half hour. So that's that's to be expected.
Okay.
A lot of it came down to is like, is this how I would even talk to somebody I care about? Thankfully, I had this gift of having coached thousands of people, so I could lean on some of that knowledge. So for anybody who's listening, just borrow this knowledge right now. If you wouldn't speak to your best friend this way, probably a good idea to change that narrative. And the same thing I would say to my wife, or how I would want to lead my children or anybody of that sort. Um, I think there's another thing that's worth going through here is that if you've never practiced it, think about like training your biceps. If you feel weak, you don't feel strong, and the muscle's not strong because you've never done any repetitions, how can you expect to just show up day one and have 100 pounds in your hand doing your bicep curls? That's the way most people do it. And they're forgetting to separate that their expertise in one place in their life does not mean they've trained that skill set in this specific set. And since most people arrive at this place in their life, usually they're pretty successful. They're good at their job. They probably are married. They got the house with the white picket fence and the American flag in the yard and the 2.5 kids and the dog and all the stuff. By and large, they've solved the external problem so they could feel safe enough. Now it's giving yourself permission to say, oh, I haven't trained this muscle. This is different. If I was a child, if it was as a kid just learning how to walk right now, I wouldn't shame and guilt that child because they fell over on their first attempt at taking their first step. So if you look at that, we'll call it that inner child. I try not to get too woo about that stuff, though I have a very deep spiritual side in all of this. If you can look at your internal self and your emotional body as with some compassion and say, I'm practicing this. What I've learned is that it makes it easier to sit in that space a little bit longer. So maybe the first time is you stand in front of your mirror, fully clothed, fully dressed, and you just look yourself in the eye for a couple seconds. You don't have to say anything because you might feel too awkward. You don't have to do those affirmations or all the other things that you think of when maybe people like to a granola or whatever that is. But you could just practice that. And just looking at yourself for a few seconds, that might be the new win. And then maybe you start asking the question and you float it around, or maybe you start journaling. It can start where you need to. And it's not, this is what expert looks like, so I have to start there. If you want to, like, knock yourself out, but if you can look for the rest of your life and be like, do I really want to be an expert at loving myself? Which call me crazy, but I find somebody really like, I would struggle to find somebody who says they don't want to know how to love themselves. But if you look at this as a new adventure and a new journey of really building mastery, give yourself some permission to start wherever it is. You might even just look at your dog. Like my dog is probably about to start snoring in 5 minutes, but like sometimes I'll look at him and be like, why does Ty love me? It just might be an easier way for you to interface with the world. Or if you have kids, why does you know Susie love daddy or mommy or whomever? And just be like, oh, well, that's how they view me. What's nice about that is it simplifies what you need to quote unquote do from a habit standpoint. How do you need to show up? And I use the example of the Oreos. Well, it might start with maybe this week, instead of a full sleeve of Oreos, you'd have half a sleeve of Oreos, or you have a glass of water before you have one Oreo, whatever the thing is. That's where I would start if I was in somebody's position where they're still feeling very insecure, sitting and dealing with that.
Nice. I love that. And while we're on the subject of kind of the biggest fears that tend to come up, I've noticed that people, especially with burnout and kind of overwhelming their business, they're just not happy with it anymore. Their biggest concern is, I can't quit because I have to pay the bills. I can't just change everything because everybody's counting on me. It's like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. And if they change anything, it's like the whole thing's going to come crashing down. Um, how do you work people through that?
Great question. And I think it comes back to the same thing of scaling and modifying. If all you're saying to yourself is, I can't, I can't, I can't, as opposed to asking, how can I? You're never going to see the small glimmer of hope. In those moments when it comes to burnout, when you're just drained of your energy, you've lost hope. And we need to just slowly turn that dial up to even like a one to say, oh, I have a little bit of hope again. So changing the narrative to, well, I'm going to start here, and self-care is going to look like I'm going to take a 5-minute break after lunch to just sit by myself and breathe before I go into the rest of the chaos of the day. Start there. Same idea. It's the same idea of just meeting yourself where you're at. And then when you find that the world doesn't end because you took 5 minutes out of your day to breathe or to read your book or to do a silly dance while you're listening to your favorite song, your favorite hype up song, you're going to go, oh, okay, well, okay, the world didn't end. What else can I do? And that builds, it starts to stockpile some of this confidence at a very granular level. After that, especially you mentioned, okay, I got to pay the bills, I got to look at all that. More often than not, people are just living outside of their means. And they're doing that because they're trying to impress other people, whether it's their significant other, their children, their friends. They grew their lifestyle too fast just because they had a good sales month or because whatever, never really setting up expectations about like where do they really want to go for their future. They got caught up in that drunk love moment of, I made the big sale, or I got married, or I had the kid. It's that honeymoon phase, like I said, the drunk love in that space where it's just like, well, everything's going to work out, as opposed to taking a moment and observing where you're at again and saying, where do we go for the future? And it's not to say that it wasn't the behaviors that got you here were out of bad intentions, because it wasn't. Like, I fundamentally believe most people just want to help others. You get into weird positions where, because of burnout, because of things, you don't act in alignment with the real person you want to be. But once you build up maybe a little bit of confidence because you gave yourself permission to breathe for 5 minutes, then maybe you go home and you bring your significant other into the picture. Maybe you've never talked about finances and saying how you're burnt out and how you're worried about everything. The more, I mean, half the time I'm doing couples counseling, it feels like, because everything affects everything. But I know for me, like, I want my wife to be happy. I want her to have the things she wants. I want her to be able to live up to whatever that is. And if you don't feel secure in your conversational skills to be able to have a meaningful engagement and really talk about what you want, really truly listen to what they want, and then create a plan together that is unified. One person just does their thing, assuming the other person knows what they're feeling or thinking at any given moment, but they never check back in. Maybe haven't checked in on your budget or your time, and that would be another budget. They probably are feeling the same thing, or they're going to say, I had no idea. How do I support you? And the cool part around that is once that both sides sit down and talk about that, then you have a partner in the journey. You have another person, another believer on your side. And it just bolsters your confidence to take the next step. Also giving your partner permission to say, hey, you're not going to be perfect because I know how I felt. And that cool underpinning in all of that gives both people permission to continue the conversation as opposed to this is the way it is, it's always going to be this way, which is the rigid dogmas that got you there in the first place. So simplifying all this, first give yourself breathing room, pun intended, to start at something very small to just slowly build up your own confidence. Again, 5 minutes after your lunch, or some people might be taking 5 minutes for lunch. That certainly happens. And then go home and reassess. Reassess your energy, reassess your time, your attention, your money, and then recalibrate. If you can all of a sudden save $3,000 to $5,000 a month that you're spending on random subscriptions or name your food delivery service and you just started dining at home or whatever it was, well, all of a sudden that's that much less money you need to worry about selling at your business into products or service or whatever it is that you just have. So you might not even be that far away from what you need, but you just didn't give yourself permission to pause and just assess where you're at and compile all the information you needed to get there.
Nice. Love this. So let's talk about giving ourselves permission to change because I think that we're still in a place in society where we're not giving ourselves permission. It's like, oh, okay, you got married. This is your agreement. That's the way it's going to be till death do you part.
Yeah.
And there's no kind of recalibration like, hey, rules of the game changed. I didn't see it. You didn't see it. But we got to talk about this thing. And I think it's more appropriate in business that um well, once people start understanding business and the whole idea of working on their business, and they're like, okay, do we do this every year? Do we do it every 6 months? And it becomes okay to reassess your business plans and like, does it fit anymore? Is the planet still in alignment? Are we still, is that software even a thing anymore? So, and how do we work forward on this? And it's becoming more normal in business to reassess, but I don't think it's becoming more normal yet in relationships.
Yeah, I think there's a difficulty around it because it I think a lot of people start thinking I'm going to be putting a number on it, and that's not romantic, and that's not sexy, and it's not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about love, and I feel this way, and there's so much guilt wrapped up into that. And I think the difficulty there is knowing how to hold people accountable with compassion. And part of having the conversation with somebody else, with your partner, or your family, or your friend, your business partner, even, is first taking accountability as the leader. If you're the first person who even acknowledges it, you're in the leadership role. And you either one of two things: you want to make it work or you don't. And so, with that premise established, if you want to make it work, you just ask yourself, if I don't talk about this and I don't do the necessary but somewhat painful steps here, at least initially, to right the ship, what are the chances of this thing actually succeeding? And how much of my life am I going to hate if I don't change this? And what's going to really happen if I keep going this direction? Chances are, if you ride that wave long enough, if you do nothing, turns into angry, brutal, very expensive divorces where the family, the kids, your then ex suffers for years, decades to come. It gets messy, it gets angry, and the fallout is far greater. And once you start to look at that weight, you go, well, a few minutes or an hour or a day or a couple of weeks of having some deeper, more challenging conversations, that doesn't seem nearly as costly because you're getting ahead of it. And in business, it's about being proactive no matter what. If you could predict the future, you'd be like, cool, I would do this thing. If I could go back and be like, invest in Apple now, you'd go back and invest in Apple now. So if you fundamentally believe in your relationship succeeding, invest in it now. Yes, there's some more upfront costs, but you did it when you started dating. It's the same thing. It's no different, but people forget to keep dating. They forget to keep investing, whether it's in money, in time, in their attention, in their energy, sex, like those things. It's understanding the love languages around that. And what happens here is that when you can start to make things more practical and perhaps a little more tangible of what's the exact habit I need somebody to deliver on, yes, it becomes binary, like zeros and ones, like a spreadsheet, like a computer. Did you do the thing or did you not do the thing? And I use this example actually with my wife the other day. It's like, just because you can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball doesn't mean you can throw it over the plate and hit a strike. You got to be able to still throw the strikes to get the outs. That's the same way you can start thinking about that. If you never practice the skill of your accuracy or really understanding your partner, you have no shot. You have no shot. So taking a moment to zoom out and look to the future and make some fairly conscious predictions. And if you've been a business leader long enough, you've probably practiced that in your business. These are my 3-month projections, my year projections, my 5-year projections. Do the same thing with your family and do the same thing with yourself, because there's no greater thing that could destroy all of this is if you just build resentment. And I'm saying firsthand, I've failed at this. I've gotten to places where my body was carrying extra weight, extra pain, chronic pain, couldn't sleep, just whirlwinds of emotions and anger all the time. And I, of course, shouldn't be surprised when I didn't know how to speak to the people around me that I said I was trying to build a life with, or how to show up with empathy to my clients or my staff or whatever it was on any given day, especially if it was a bad day. So it's being conscious and responsible enough and reliable enough to say, this is where I'm at. What are the behaviors that traditionally have helped? Well, I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to invest. I'm going to have a few hard conversations, and then we'll make a new assessment. But until you sit down and you talk with them, like, you don't know. That's, if I was to say anything, it's probably the fear of, well, I don't know. If I say I want to change, what if my wife says, I don't want that? Well, you're not going to know until you ask. She also might be like, I've been waiting for you to tell me this. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't even know you were struggling. I've been struggling too. I just didn't know how to bring it up. And all of a sudden, you might find a really robust and enriching and empowered relationship on the other side that leaves you feeling more inspired, that gives you more space to work on yourself, that all of a sudden, with all that extra energy, come back into work the next day. And you're like, staff, clients, let's go. Here's this vision. This is exciting. This is how we're going to change the world. That charisma is contagious, but it takes the courage. And that's why we look up to great leaders. They had the courage to sit with themselves and be honest and be true, and then speak that truth into existence in a meaningful and empathetic conversation with the people they love.
Nice. I love that. And I love the baseball analogy because I think so many people are trying to hit that that one shot. Um, and they don't realize that if they just slow down and, and make it a little more sloppy, that's okay. It's still going yeah, you might have more predictability when it's slow and sloppy than when it's just hard and fast and you're trying to keep on top of it. And I think a lot of people have expectations of what a relationship should look like. This is, you know, the Beaver Cleaver family. This is the whatever, and this is the way it's supposed to be. And it's like, dude, that was imaginary in the 50s. It's certainly not the way it is now. And just giving each other permission to say, like, all all expectations, all society's rules and regulations aside, if you could do anything you wanted to, what would you want to do? And I'm not saying we're going to do it, but I just want to hear what yours is and give them the space to be able to do that. All of a sudden, you start to realize, hey, we could have this totally sloppy relationship together, and it's going to be epic.
How beautiful can that be? And then like we start to reframe what sloppy means. It's like, oh, that was play. Play is so unorganized.
Right?
It's so joyous. It's so, I was using this and, tell me if I'm getting a little raunchy with it, but like think about when
Kids
that honey
listening, kids are listening. Let's keep
kids are
that.
listening on this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Muted. Okay. Think about your honeymoon phase. There was no rhyme or reason. It was just play. You were connecting. It was exciting. It was new. When you have stuff to lose, though, I think that's where it gets really difficult. That's the byproduct of our own success. We didn't even know we were going to get here. And my best friend, and he works with me as well, he calls it altitude sickness. I go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You climbed this mountain, you're at this new spot, you got here perhaps faster than you knew. You didn't have time to adapt. You don't even know. And you're looking to the next thing as opposed to realizing like, whoa, I got here. Do I even like where I'm at before I go for the next climb? Maybe you need to go down a little bit, reassess there where you can breathe a little deeper, where you can get your bearings again. The people that love you are going to celebrate your courage. The people that don't really care about you, they're going to leave anyway. They're going to talk trash, but that's their own stuff. And if you can lead with empathy on that, like that's on them. And then to be like, cool, I wish you well. I hope that you find peace within yourself. And that's a real sign of maturity and inner love within yourself and towards others. Because when you're just really good on you, you don't get angry. You don't get angry at other things. Like, oh, I see it for what it is. That person maybe is having a bad day. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they're whatever. But that when he said that altitude sickness, I was like, whoa, oh, and it is a byproduct of success. You got here. Maybe we need to go down here, go back to base camp, check the mountain, check the storms, check the problems ahead, get our bearings, stock up, have the right things, have the right people on the team. Just do that for a little bit. Your energy is going to come back to you, and you're going to be far more optimistic about the future. And it's tough. It's tough, but like the playfulness will come back and that excitement. And I think that's why people lean into like the shiny object thing. All of a sudden, look, there's the new thing. It's distracting you from slowing down because you don't want to sit with the discomfort of slowing down, especially if you're an ideas person. Like I am fully attesting to my own failures on that one. Like been there, done that. And it took enough times running myself into a brick wall to go, what if I just slow down and not just jump to say yes at everything? What if I had a little more foresight and asked a couple better questions to clarify if we're in the same spot? Because ultimately I started asking, do I want to let these people down who are making me an offer? Whether it was a client who wanted to pay me money or somebody who wanted to have another type of like bring me in for something. From what I knew about myself and what my tendencies were, like, oh, well, I can see how this is going to fail in 3 months. And I'm going to let them down on these expectations. And then I'm going to erode my confidence on the back end of that. I'm going to start all over or worse. That's like that would be more like the avalanche analogy. It's like, cool, I'm just going to start climbing, but the weather is tumultuous and the new snow is there, and all of a sudden, boom, crashed. I like all these are some fun metaphors and analogies on the fly, by the way. So I think that is, it's really, again, the hallmark of being a great leader is this patience and this foresight. You can only get that from slowing it down a little bit. When there is the moment to strike, though, you'll have the capacity to speed up. That's the cool part. You'll have the energy to sprint. And in the training world and fitness and exercise, there's a saying: it's not how hard you train, it's how well you recover. Because when you go into the gym, you're not building muscle, you're destroying it. You're breaking it down. You're breaking down those fibers. It's in that recovery when you're sleeping, when you're nourishing your body, when you're doing whatever your recovery routines are, that musculature that does the work rebuilds itself and it adapts to the stimulus. Says, I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to be prepared for that bout or something even more challenging the next time. If we can use that as a metaphor for life, all of a sudden we realize, oh, cool. So if I just do this more stably and more consistently, I'm going to actually enjoy this process a lot more, as opposed to I'm going to show up on day one, throw 300 pounds on my back, but I can only really handle 100. I'm going to get under the thing and it's going to crush me, break my back, and then I'm going to have to come recover back from healing my back. It's this wisdom and foresight. Some people need to just run through the brick wall a couple times and suffer more. Some people will listen to the wisdom the first time and will be like, cool, thanks for avoiding years, if not decades, of pain and heartache. So to take it from me, take it from somebody who tried both ways, it was the experience was a lot more enjoyable one way. I can say that much.
Brick walls tend to be a little inflexible. What can we say?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
who do you love to serve in sports? So, like, who's your ideal client, and where do your majority of your clients come from?
More often than not, they're business owners or they're leaders. They tend to be that C-suite or above. They tend to be somebody who carries a lot of burdens. But I like to consider them heart-centered leaders, people who want to have more impact. Uh, the reality is like that doesn't need to be you change the world in all. You're not going to maybe invent the iPhone, but if you think more about generational health, what kind of role model do you want to be at home? You want to be a good mother or father to your children? Do you want to be able to leave a great legacy with them where you felt connected and you felt like you could support them? And then also be able to do that for the people you're leading. If you have a team underneath you or you have clients, they tend to be a lot of service-based industries because the burden of of caring for other people is quite challenging. It's very different when you're in a leadership position. It's more of coaching than it is of doing, which can be very, very difficult, especially if you're a great doer of the tasks. Uh, they tend to come from whether it's social media or past referrals. That's where I tend to find all those people. But it's usually somebody feeling a little burnt out. They've hit this wall in their life. They're stuck. They know all the stuff, but what I find is they don't feel seen and heard. They look out for everybody else. They don't really have somebody looking out for them and holding the space to feel safe enough to even explore this type of conversation. And what they're wanting is for somebody to make it simple. They don't want some complex, I always use the analogy of like a laundry list of exercises. They don't want 30 different things because they already have a to-do list that's a mile long. They want, let's start here. I want something simple and I want something sustainable. It's going to work with my life. They're really wanting something holistic. They don't want to just feel like there's some cookie cutter person plugged into some random math equation. The same way they don't treat their people that way. They want to have that same type of relationship of caregiving that they've been giving to the people that they are responsible to.
Nice, I love it. So, give us an example of one of your Cinderella stories of somebody that you've worked with.
Well, one of them, I just got a text from her this morning, well, last night, and this morning she told me, she's like, I'm so excited to tell you this. Now, I haven't worked with her in about a year. Every now and then I get a text, maybe every 2, 3 months, but she was approached by some other fitness company. I can't give the name because of whatever. They were like, hey, we want to buy your fitness company and give you this and like take your clients. Now they're renegotiating some different things and they're actually instead bringing her in to be a sales leader and a coach for their whole thing and come in as a consulting role on top of her home practice. She has a fitness facility and transformation center basically out of her garage. That was really cool, but it was a lot of with her. She's got a couple kids. She's got a husband who travels a lot. She's being pulled in a million different miles. She runs a fitness center where she tries to help these women that she serves get stronger in their bodies and feel more confident. That was really exciting for me. I haven't worked with her in a year, but she's been still applying a lot of the lessons, whether it was in her life balance or how she was speaking to her clients or just talking with her husband and also making sure she was taking care of herself at the same time. That was really exciting because to me, that was great success on my end that she doesn't need me. Like I'm like a check-in person now in her life. And she knows how to get the resources. So that was really cool for me, just as like oh, that's a today kind of thing. Um, but I've walked through a lot of, like, I have one person in mind. She went through a divorce the past couple of years, and we walked through all that. And prior to that, she's not like a big person. She's very tiny, but she'd gotten out of shape. She was a leader within a state organization, and I think she had hundreds of people under her tutelage, if we will. And she was having a new kid. She had just had a baby. She had her husband that she was divorcing at the time. She had all these different family obligations, and she just like took her life back. While she wanted to build her acting career and be able to do these other fun adventures with her body. Whether it was she likes doing it's called the tactical games, where it's pretty badass actually. They go like do fitness things and like shoot guns and hit targets, and it was pretty wild. It's really cool. But to be able to see amidst all that, for her to become more grounded in herself. Yes, she lost a bunch of weight. She was looking really lean, but also feeling very confident, just her ability to navigate her life. She was getting a promotion as well. To me, that brings me a lot of joy, because she just like had the courage to keep going in the direction of what she wanted, even when the idea of what a happy, fulfilling life on paper was supposed to look like was starting to wash away. She had the courage to keep going, and it was for me, it was a real privilege to hold some space for her while she allowed herself to just be awesome. And yeah, there's just a lot of love in that one. So
Nice.
those are just a couple
I
people.
love it. So let's go back to, what are some of the stumbling blocks that somebody be going through right now, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, Caleb, I need you so badly."
Right now they're feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. They got a lot of stuff on their plate and they feel hopeless. How do I do this? How do I get there? They've probably not spent much time taking care of themselves. They've struggled giving themselves permission to just take any time for themselves, whether it's because the kids or their job or their significant other is having lots of demands. They're feeling guilty to make that time for themselves. That's typically when it's a good time to say, oh, I need somebody else to come in, help me work on my communication, give me permission to say, hey, it's okay. And we're going to start with something simple. They're looking for a simple, deep relationship. I'm going to be the mirror for that, but it's really for a simple, deeper relationship with themselves, so that they can let that happier, joyous person inside of them out and back into the world.
I love it. So I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How do they start their journey with you?
Go follow me on Instagram at Naked Sunday Podcast. Go check me out there. It's probably where I spend the most time in my DMs, or whatever it's called. As ridiculous as sound as some social media lack of savantism in all of that. Go follow me there. I have the podcast. You can follow, it's what's it called? Anchor.fm/Naked Sunday. You can listen to all the great guests. You've been a guest on that, so thank you for being an amazing guest on the show. It's going to air at some point I'm pre-recorded for a while, so that's going to show up at some point. And of course, I'll tag you there. But yeah, if somebody just reaches out, sends me a message and said, hey, I want to get involved. I have private coaching and I have a group. My group is called the League of Extraordinary Beings, and it's to have people be around a group of people just like that, who are going through the same challenges that you are. If you couldn't tell, that plays into a little acronym, LEB. My nickname is Leb. So I like the word play as well. I played a lot of Scrabble in my day, so the word jumbles in my head are all kind of floating around. If anybody's interested in all that, just send me a private message and we can just have a conversation. Think of it like a first date.
Awesome. And you also have a book on the Naked Sunday, yes?
Working on that. Yeah, I've got my what's the word called? Dun, 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 dun. Ghostwriter. He's been helping me. I sent him mountains of content. He's like, I'm gonna sort through all this stuff, man. We worked on a table of contents together. I was like, this is awesome. For me to fill all this in, not my greatest suit, but I was like, here's all this stuff. But I'll sneak peek it right now. The title is called "Why Do You Love Yourself? How to Look Better Naked Inside and Out." So whenever people see that, like I said, go check out the Instagram. You'll probably see all the postings there and see me and my dog and my wife and doing whatever. My wife is knows that stuff way more than I do. And she's super cute. So like, who doesn't want to see how we're dancing around? And she's a teacher too, so like makes things very cute. And it's a good time. But yeah.
That's awesome. So I have to ask you, at what point in life did you know that you were special, kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
Ooh. Okay, so I was 17 years old, and that's when I told my parents I was leaving their religious doctrines. So I think I've told you, and I'll tell everybody else. I grew up in, I call it a cult. Well, some people call it a cult, some people call it a religion. I call it a life experience, a life lesson, better yet. And at 17, whether people believe it or not, like until that moment, I didn't know how to talk. I could talk about sports and I could talk about school, like fine, but to talk about anything of substance, to how to forget talking to women, that was which is ironic on top of, because I speak to mostly women. I told them,
You're just
hey,
saving time.
I'm just
I can
saying,
build it all up and then
and then it just poured out. I remember that moment, and as all great stories go, there was a girl, and that was what inspired that conversation to sit down. I was supposed to have an arranged marriage, and I was not allowed to date or anything like that. And I'm glossing over a lot here,
Yeah.
but I told them, hey, there's this girl that nothing's happened, but if there's an opportunity, I'm going to pursue it. And they said, cool. Well, if you do, there's going to be consequences. And as the story would go,
There
I
were
I
consequences.
I took the leap.
Nice.
But in myself, and I think that this is where entrepreneurs and anybody who's taken a big leap of faith on themselves in their life, it was a statement that I'm willing to walk away from what I don't believe in and to walk in the path that I believe is true to me. And whenever I feel lost, when I've gone through business fallouts, I've gone through breakups, I've gone through all those things, I remember that moment and like, it all works out. And for entrepreneurs, it takes a lot of courage to just do something extraordinary, to be yourself. And that's what being extraordinary is to me, to truly be yourself. It takes a lot of guts. And by doing that, that's what allows you to actually stand out from the crowd. And I would probably say it's more like naivete that said like, cool, that's when I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. But looking back, it kind of makes sense. That's where I'm at. So I'm getting all excited, spitting all over myself. Being the weirdo that I am, being the crazy person that I am.
I love
That's
it. I love it. I love it. So in your entrepreneurial journey, can you give us an example of maybe a mistake that you made that you can laugh at now, or something that might have been embarrassing, but you think it's pretty funny now?
Ooh. One of my greatest mistakes, and it tends to be a recurring theme with me, is not pre-setting expectations and checking in. I like to be right, and I like to think that I'm the greatest communicator ever. But when I'm not feeling good on me, I keep my thoughts in my head and I forget to share that. And I forget that it's a consistent sharing. Just because I've sat with a thought for a day or a week, and I sit with my thoughts a lot. Like I do actually really enjoy my alone time to just ponder the universe and the meaning of life. And I'll come to some realization and realize, and then I forget that this person I want to share this enlightenment, whatever that means, the person I want to share that with, this is the first time they're hearing it. How
What?
can
They're
I?
not psychic?
They're not. It's like they don't know all this stuff. They did, and I'm probably telling just some disconnected, lack of continuity story to them, and they're just like sipping from a fire hose, trying to find the one vein of connectivity in all of it. And then when I'm upset that they don't remember all the things I tried to say 3 months later, I would get really bad with it. And it would usually be like, it was because I was also afraid to keep checking in and admit that I was wrong, or that I needed to continue to nurture the relationship that way. And for the times that I've had fallouts and blowups, um, in all aspects of my life, that's been the recurring theme. And that's a big reason why I've said a lot of the things I said today, is that now that I see where it goes in my life, if I don't communicate now, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, I see the bottom falling out. And I much rather fail quickly and get the lesson out of that and make space for me in a relationship, whether it's professional or personal, to continue to grow early and often. Um, so that's been embarrassing. I've had to eat a lot of humble pie to come to terms with that, and apologize for things where I felt super right, while both it takes two to tango. Like, for me to own up to that piece, to say I was wrong. Like, here's the embarrassing part. This is a good way to come back to it. One of my friends, and he was a business partner for a while, I admitted I was wrong about something, and he took a picture of me with his phone, me doing like this, saying I was wrong. Unbeknownst to me, a couple days later, because it was my birthday, here comes this framed picture with, in quotes, I was wrong, time stamped and everything. Here you go. And we hung it in the gym for a while, and I have it downstairs in my garage, where I have my little makeshift gym.
And
And
that's what you need friends for.
that's what you need friends for. That's what you need. And now I laugh at it, because it's like,
That's
hey
funny.
man, don't take yourselves too seriously. You can be wrong again, and in fact, you will be wrong again. So it's a humbling reminder, and that's why I try to keep it front and center with me. Um, and I would encourage anybody, if you have some type of embarrassment like that, the laughter around it helped soften the shame that I was feeling. So, and now it's just a fun story, and I've never thought of it that way. So I appreciate you asking that question that way.
Awesome. I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in with entrepreneurs that they've gone on, and this is the most spectacular idea. And we're all like, what are you talking about? It's the first time we've heard this. You know that, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh,
Oh, it happened
yes,
all the
you're
time.
not alone. I'll assure you on that one.
Oh, that's a
Oh,
tough one. It's a tough one, because the word visionary comes to mind. It's like, oh, I see the answer. Let's go.
oh.
And it's like, you got to make sure the rest of the people understand where you're going too.
Do we need a
Crazy.
swimsuit? Do we need a pencil? Where we go?
Yeah, not everybody is
Huh.
as secure, or whatever it is. They might need different things, and that's really valuable in life. Some, like my best friend, he's more hardwired. He calls himself like a professional skeptic. He traditionally operates from a little more of a pessimistic lens. He keeps me around to keep the optimistic side, to counteract that. But like, he's saved me from calamity more times than I care to recount. He challenges me to slow down. Like you said before, do I need a swimsuit? Well, if you're going swimming, or what if you're going into the Arctic? What are you going to need then? What are the tools you're going to need there? Who's coming with? How much food do you need to ration? All of those things are great questions. You're not just showing up. There's value into it, but like, as you go along, it's like, do you want to go there fast, or do you want to go far? And those are neither are bad questions. How do you want to get there? But I took a long time to appreciate the fact that people were slowing me down. They got me to think about it, because if I could answer their questions and they would say yes, and like it was a wholehearted yes, I didn't have to sell anybody else, because they sold the rest of their audience, because they would be like, no, this makes sense. We checked all the boxes. We're good to go. And the collaboration and the facility at which we're able to achieve that next result is so much more fun, and it's actually really fast. It seems slow leading up to it, but then all of a sudden, like, oh, like, we're here now. I guess we have the result we said we wanted. Cool. What else can we do next? And you do the same process. So,
Nice. I
soapbox
love it.
rant over.
Caleb, you've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it immensely. I know how valuable it is. Any last words for our peeps?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for allowing me to just share some thoughts today. And parting thoughts for anybody else, one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Martin Luther King. It's, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can. And I share that because most people are trying to hate their way into loving their life. So with everything I shared here, and specifically with that question, why do you love yourself? My challenge is for people to sit with that question and to start building their life around that, because not only do you stand to benefit from it, But everybody in your stead, anybody who's following you and relying on you to just be, well, reliable, they're going to enjoy being around you. They're going to share their energy willingly and excitedly. And you're going to have a really amazing and prosperous life from that. So give yourself the permission and have the courage to just love on you some.
Love it. Thank you again, Caleb. I appreciate your time. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and join our Facebook group, Business Ownership Secrets to Scaling. We love connecting with you and helping you grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention. You do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap. They offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.